All right, hi guys. Hope you guys are doing good and are safe. So this is today is my 10th wedding anniversary, and we got dressed at least to ensure we feel different today versus every other day. And the husband, by the way, says that this is the most economic wedding anniversary ever over the last decade. Anyways, I reckon I may as well do a review today. So the book that I'm reading is called Think Like a Rocket Scientist, and it's by an actual rocket scientist turned lawyer, this person called Ozan Varol, and he focuses on simple strategies for taking giant leaps at work and in life. So we'll talk about 3 key things from the book today. Starting with the first one, which is being comfortable working with uncertainty. Okay, so he talks about how in science absolute certainty in itself is a mirage. It doesn't exist, right? He talks about how when we were children, we tend to oversimplify the world into binary values of good versus bad, for example, right? But as we grow, we fail to outgrow this this binary classification we have in our head, and we go around trying to fit square pegs into round holes and pigeonholing people and things into these neat categories in our head to create an illusion of order, because we're not very comfortable with uncertainty and disorder. And this attitude, he says, comes at a cost, because discoveries in general happen when there are anomalies and not necessarily complete world order. So in summary, he talks about how we should get comfortable working with uncertainty and also naming your fear. So ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? How likely is it to occur given what you know right now? Okay, and he also talks about considering the best case scenario. So if you don't do this analysis between the worst case and best case scenario, then your brain would steer towards the most safest path, which is inaction, not doing anything. Okay, so he quotes this Chinese proverb that many a false step was made by just standing still. So start walking, because that's the only way forward. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one he talks of is reasoning using first principles. By definition, first principles thinking is credited to Aristotle, and it is the first basis basically from which a thing is known. And I first heard about this concept when I was reading about Elon Musk. The author talks about how we have always done it this way, or the status quo is a super magnet, right? And the default as such carries this immense power, and what we have done before kind of shapes what we will continue to do. For example, he talks about the keyboard layout which we use, right? The QWERTY. Now this arrangement was to ensure that it prevented mechanical blockage in the typewriters we used to use earlier. This is not a problem we face today, right? But yet we persist with the arrangement even now, even though it is not the most efficient. He talks about how process by definition is therefore backward looking, and it is developed based on troubles we have had, right, yesterday. So if you continue to treat it as sacrosanct and not question it when we evolve, then it can impede forward movement and it could become outdated. So he highlights this quote around, do we own the process or does the process own us? And when it is required, we need to unlearn what we know and start over again. All right. So he gives this example of how first principles thinking prompted SpaceX to question this age-old assumption that the rockets once launched cannot be reused, something that they proved wrong hence. In summary, question yourself, what if this weren't true? Why am I doing it this way? Can I get rid of this and replace it with something better? All right, so that's the second one. Now the third one is kind of related, and it talks about moonshot thinking. Moonshots force you to reason from first principles. So for example, if your goal is say 1% improvement, then you can continue to work with the status quo, right? But if your goal is to improve by 10x, then the existing scenario needs to go. And pursuing moonshots puts you in a completely different league altogether. He quotes this example, right? So, for example, if your goal was to improve the car's safety, then you can continue to make improvements in the design of a car to protect human life from accidents. But if you were to question all the underlying assumptions, including why do you need a human operator behind the wheel, this may pave way to autonomous cars, which is what is happening today. So he gives this example of how a lion is fully capable of capturing, killing, and eating a field mouse, right? But it turns out that the energy that it would expend in doing so exceeds the ROI or the calorific content it would get from the mouse. So most of us, similarly, he says, go after the mice instead of the antelopes, since we think that the mouse is a sure thing, but the antelope is a moonshot. I thought that was a great analogy. So with that, I'll recap these 3 points, right? Be comfortable working with uncertainty. The second one is around reasoning using first principles and questioning your assumptions. And the third is moonshot thinking. Think 10x, all right? So I'll end this with a quote from the book. Until we push our cognitive limits and stretch boundaries of what we consider practical, we cannot discover the invisible rules that is holding us back. I hope this has been useful to you guys. You take care. I will talk to you soon. All right? Take care. Bye.